All right, so in this Helldivers 2 video, we're going to be going over what it's like to have a max level Reprimand SMG. Now, the Reprimand SMG has been in the purgatory, so to speak, of Helldivers weapons because a lot of people liked it, but the recoil was out of control. But now with weapon customization, we are now able to adjust that recoil to make it more manageable, and it's definitely transformed this weapon quite a bit. How much has it changed it? We're going to talk about that right now. Anyways, let's talk about it. So the baseline stats for the Reprimand without any attachments is the damage is 125, the capacity is 25, the fire rate is 490, the horizontal recoil is 16, the vertical recoil is 48, the ergonomics are 50, the backup magazines are 9, and the reload is 4 seconds. And here's the recoil simulation prior to adding any weapon attachments on the weapon whatsoever. The categories of attachments that are available for the Reprimand SMG are optics, underbarrels, and muzzles. Taking a look at optics first, we start off with the holographic sight, that's the baseline one, and then we have a host of red dot options available if you do like to aim down sight. And we also have a iron sight, which increases ergonomics by 5. For the underbarrels, these affect recoil, ergonomics, and bullet spread. The default is laser with flashlight. The no barrel actually increases your ergonomics by 5. The vertical foregrip actually decreases vertical recoil by 14, and it also tightens up that spread ever so much. And lastly, the flashlight vertical foregrip does the same exact thing as the regular vertical foregrip, except it loses 2 ergonomics overall. Muzzles for the Reprimand affect horizontal and vertical recoil, ergonomics, and overall bullet spread. So by default, no muzzle is the actual baseline attachment. If you add the flash hider on, this is basically the middle of the road muzzle, so it's going to decrease your horizontal recoil by 4. It's going to decrease your vertical recoil by 7. It's also going to decrease your ergonomics by 3, and you can see it does bring down that pellet spread and tighten it up ever so much. So the muzzle brake is designed to tighten up that spread as tight as possible, so it's going to decrease the horizontal recoil by 7, and it's going to decrease the ergonomics by 5, but you can see that the vertical recoil does go up quite a bit. And lastly, the compensator is designed to decrease that vertical recoil as much as humanly possible, so it's going to decrease that by 20, and it's also going to decrease the ergonomics by 5, but you can see that the pellet spread is pretty tight and the overall recoil is really tight as well. So now that we've gone over the available attachments, I do want to talk about the fact that this weapon does not have any magazine attachments, which is a little disappointing to me because I understand that a lot of these weapons that had medium pen and were already high damage, they didn't want to give them the advantage of giving them more bullets, which I understand to a degree, but 25 bullets in the magazine still feels very limiting, even with the extra control to recoil and the fact that we're hitting our shots more often. And once we get to talking about the rest of the factions and how it plays against it in a moment, you'll kind of understand what I'm talking about, because it just doesn't perform like I want it to against the factions just because of that lower magazine. But at the end of the day, like, it's not a deal breaker just because it does have its use cases where it's very powerful overall and it feels very strong since it's one of the highest per damage bullets in the game. But at the same time, I just wanted to mention that I am a little bit disappointed that magazines were not included in some way. Just like a basic extended magazine to increase it by 10 or something would have been even fine in my opinion. It doesn't need to be something crazy. Now that we understand how the baseline attachments work and how they affect the weapon in different ways, what we're going to do is we're going to go over some of my favorite combinations of attachments, and we're also going to talk about how this weapon fares against all the factions with said combinations that I feel like are the best ones. Probably the most popular version of this is going to be this max recoil control combination, which is going to be for the optics. You're going to have the iron sight, you're going to have the vertical foregrip, as well as you're going to have the compensator for your muzzle. Now the reason why a lot of people like this so much is because it really tightens up that spread so much and it brings down that vertical recoil a ton, which is one of the biggest problems with this weapon. So it's going to be basically a laser beam in a lot of ways. Now it's going to be somewhat a little bit leaning to the left or right because the horizontal recoil is a little bit increased still, but overall it's going to definitely be a much more accurate weapon at different ranges. The one thing I do with this particular combination is I do switch out the optic for the tube red dot, and the primary reason for that is just because I feel like you're going to aim with this weapon more down sight at times, especially since you're going to be engaging enemies at more of that medium and long range, and the ability to be able to aim down sight with this clean scope is super nice, especially if you run at a higher FOV like I do. It just feels so freaking accurate and good, especially with the recoil pattern overall, and I absolutely do love this tube red dot sight in this particular setup. Now, the other setup, in my opinion, I feel like is the best overall recoil control, because you do get the vertical and the horizontal recoil control, and it's more that middle of the road, which we're going to be doing the same optic of iron sights or the tube red dot, and we're also going to be adding the foregrip again. And then lastly, we're going to be adding the flash hider. Now, if you are on mouse and keyboard, this might actually be a better combination because you can tighten up that spread even more, and it's easier to control your vertical recoil on mouse and keyboard. If you're on a controller, I would say that the compensator build is probably better overall, so it's kind of pick your poison, but really that compensator build is kind of the sweet spot overall for this weapon. But I do feel like a lot of people should at least try the flash hider build just to see if it actually does work better for them overall. All right, so with how this weapon performs against the Terminids, I feel like it's just fine. And again, we go back to those magazine concerns, which we'll talk about in just a moment, but overall recoil control feels incredible. You're able to engage some of the bugs for much longer distances, so if you have the opportunity to get the jump on them on the more wide open planets, it's going to feel absolutely incredible engaging the bugs at those various distances. But again, where the problem lies is at close quarters and also the magazine size. Like I mentioned, the bugs engage you at such close quarters at various times like that it feels like you're struggling. Now, if you're using things like gas grenades or the gas rover, it's going to help you out a lot. You're going to be able to take apart those brood commanders, those stalkers, and all those medium level units very easily, which is super nice. But overall, again, it feels fine. It's not my favorite weapon to use against the bugs just because of the slower fire rate, because of the close quarters issues, because of the magazine size. I don't feel like I love bringing it, but if I was going for a more stealthy build or engaging enemies at longer range and I build around it a certain way, it might be viable. But overall, again, it's just fine versus the bugs. So against the Illuminates, it's more of a mixed bag than it is against the bugs, in my opinion, because it does struggle against things I didn't really expect, like the Overseers, for example. I thought this thing was going to be an absolute beast versus the Overseers because of the high damage, the fact that it has medium pen. Even though I was hitting them with a ton of bullets, it didn't feel like they were dying, whether it was the head, the chest, or whatever, and that was kind of disappointing overall. It felt like it took way more ammo than I wanted it to. Now, against the flesh mobs, it's a completely different story because they are such a large target and you're going to hit the majority of your bullets on target. You're going to be able to kill them in a lot of times pretty close to one magazine, if not a few extra bullets, which is pretty wild, because the thing about the flesh mobs is that you need to hit a certain damage threshold and then they'll just die. So that's kind of where this thing actually is strong at, because it does have a high damage per bullet. Against the Voteless, you're going to kill them, but there are just so many on the map that there are better horde clearing options overall. So really, I don't know, like, I just don't love this thing against the Illuminates. It's just kind of middle of the road, if not the bottom half of primaries I would bring in against the Illuminates. Nothing crazy. And yeah, I was just honestly disappointed with how this thing performed against the Illuminate overall. Now, against the bots, my goodness, this gun is freaking good. This is definitely going to be one of the top tier bot weapons within the game, just because of the fact that A, it does have that medium armor penetration, B, it has such a high damage value, and then C, it's just an absolute accurate beast now with all the weapon attachments. So you're going to be able to absolutely eviscerate the Devastators. You're going to kill the Strider enemies. You're going to kill pretty much everything in between. It's just very, very good overall. And even the vents on the various enemies are going to die really quickly. I absolutely love this thing. You throw the tube sight on this thing, and seriously, you're going to have an accurate beast, because the primary ranges you're going to be engaging the automatons in, except for berserkers and some of the other enemies, is going to be medium to long range, and this thing absolutely destroys things at that range. It's also good against the gunships and just in general. So out of all three factions, it's definitely an absolute must versus the bots, which is a saving grace for it, because I felt like it was going to be good. It was good before with being in single shot, but now that we can run this thing at full auto versus the bots, it absolutely shreds the bots. So it's very, very good overall. So yeah, overall, my recommendation for the Reprimand is it's not a high priority weapon for you to level up. It is good and it has its use cases, and it's definitely very much one of the top tier weapons against the bots, as I just mentioned. But in terms of other factions, it's just not really a must have. So if you have other weapons that you want to level up, you definitely don't need to rush out and level up the Reprimand right now. It's not that much better than it was before, even though it is much more accurate, which is good. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this breakdown of the Reprimand. Definitely more to come, so make sure you get subscribed and like the video, because it does help out with the algorithm. Let me know what weapons you guys are grinding right now and leveling up, because I'm definitely interested to see what everybody's working on. Anyways, I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.